I think we're live.
We're live.
Hello, welcome to episode 20 of the Soul's Kitchen podcast. It's a special edition live broadcast. I'm here with Bruce Hughes, musician and author, also retired educator, all-around great guy, and a stroke survivor. So welcome, Bruce.
Thank you, Lisa.
First time we're doing this kind of in studio idea. We're just sitting here with our background there. Bruce, thank you so much for being on the show.
No, thank you so much for having me, Lisa. We're old friends. I'm happy to do it.
We're old friends. And yeah, Bruce, I want to talk about, we're going to talk about your music career, your music life, because you are a musician. Also, recent author. So we're going to talk about Bruce's book, Stroke of Luck. That is coming out. It's not officially out yet, is it?
Actually, it
is officially out?
Well, the official release date is April 15th, but there were so many pre-orders that they put it on some bookshelves now. And the first run was sold out, and they've just made a second run this week. So things are off to a great start.
That's good news.
Yeah.
So here on the Soul's Kitchen podcast, I want to have conversations with people who are living their soul's purpose or desire. So, of course, I thought of you even before the book came out. Yeah, because you're a musician. And so do you want to start there?
Okay.
Talk to us about how you became a musician.
Well, I grew up around music. Most of my family members were into music. Like my mom played piano, dad wrote songs, played guitar and sang. My little brother was a really good singer. I was a roadie, right, for his band. And then when I went to university, and the Aiken Center was being built. When that opened, I roadied concerts there for 3 years.
Okay.
And then I got my first teaching job in northern BC up by the Alaska Panhandle. I was 22. Wow. It got dark at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And I'm like, I need a hobby. So I
I
went to the local store. They had 2 guitars. I beat them down to $150 for this Aria, 1980 Aria. And had 4 cassette tapes because the night before I moved out there, someone broke in our car and stole all our cassettes. So
oh my goodness.
I drove across Canada, stopped in Calgary, and a friend gave me 4 tapes. So we had 1 radio station, 1 TV station, and 4 tapes. And I bought a guitar and just taught myself to play from that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were 22.
22.
Okay. So fast forward, we're not going to ask you how old you are now.
Well, no, that's okay.
No, I'm just kidding. So that started, and you just took to it, right? You just self-taught?
Well, I always loved music. I was like the DJ at parties, and music in our house was like, I had 3 brothers and a sister and 2 parents, and all of us were into music. Like there was always music on at the house.
That's
People
fun.
would come to the house.
Yes.
We could listen to Frank Zappa records that our friends and neighbors wouldn't, or couldn't.
Right. Okay.
So we were pretty liberal, allowed what we could play. There was no censorship in my house when it came to music. And I just always liked it. And then when I bought a guitar and started to play, I thought that, it was more therapeutical almost. Like I was an athlete too. And team sports, you need a team and stuff.
You weren't, Bruce?
Well, there's all kinds of stuff I wish I was.
Educator, author, athlete, musician. All right, we'll just keep tabs here. Okay.
Keep kissing my butt, Lisa.
Yeah, okay.
But it was a good way for me to transition off sports. And the more I got into music, the more I enjoyed it. And I could sit by myself. I didn't need a field or a team or whatever. So it became something I could do on my own. It was cheap. I didn't have to go anywhere, buy a set of strings every now and then. And I was sitting on the north side of the green when I moved back here, and I was getting more into it. And there was a lady, she's a professional, plays the harp.
Okay.
And she played in orchestras and, all over the world. And her dog and mine would go down to the green. And I saw her there one day, and we knew each other a little. And I said, listen, I'm really getting into guitar. I know no theory. Should I take some? And she goes, well, what's your goal? And I said, I just want to write some songs. I know I've missed the boat on the neuroplasticity side. Like 14-year-olds are great guitar players because they start young. I was 22. I missed that boat. So rhythm was kind of my thing.
Okay.
And I said, I just want to write songs and play rhythm. And she says, you know what? She says, the way you're learning, will take longer, but you'll never forget it. She said, I play with the best musicians in the world, some of them. And she says they could not sit down at this kitchen table and play a 3-chord song with you without those notes in front of them. No matter how many times they played it. So I didn't understand that. I'm like, well, no, I can play now without it. So you mean these supposedly professionals? And so it was a real learning curve thing for me. And she said, no, you really don't need it if your goal is just to write songs, play rhythm, and have others maybe record them, you know.
But I have a question for you.
Sure.
You said something about neuroplasticity. So let's come back to that in a second, because I have a question for you.
Okay.
After that. So you got together with this harp lady.
Oh yeah, and she told me that when I asked.
Funny. Harp lady. Okay.
And she says, no, you don't really need lessons.
Right.
And I just decided right there, okay, I was really going to give it a try, because I had started to write some songs, and I thought they were kind of good, but I was like, until I can have some confidence and show them other people.
Right.
So I just keep scraps and this and that, and then over time I did, and I decided to go back to the University of Lethbridge as a visiting student. And out there I met an old friend from the Howard Brook band that I went to university with, Al Morris, and we ended up renting a house together in my senior year while he was working for McCain's out there. And on Sundays, we'd do a house cleaning or dishes and, vacuum, and we'd have the guitar strapped on and we'd put on the record player, and he'd say, okay, C, D, G, and he'd teach me songs that way. So when I moved back here, we were both living, he was in Maine and I was here, and we decided to put a band together in 1986, I think.
Right.
And just started playing parties and this and that. And over time, we got a good following and people started offering us money. So about 89, I think I started playing for money in bars and clubs and stuff. Right. And it just, all the bands I ever played in, the goal was to write your own music. Everybody starts off with covers, but my goal was always to write our own songs and stuff. So over time, that's what we did. We recorded an album, and nice. And then I got out of it for a while. I just, the business side of it just kind of got to me, and I was teaching at the same time and working in high stress level jobs, working in M&R and guidance and stuff, and some pretty high stress cases, so to speak. And music was always my therapy, and it just, now it was not as enjoyable as it was, because too many things. And I just decided to take a break. Right. Okay. Yeah. And then I worked with young people and helped them develop their skills and bands, and I'd help manage them, lots of people you would know.
I think when I first met you, you judged competition at the high school.
Oh yeah, this is the first year, and probably
I didn't pick my son's band, but that's all right.
That's okay.
I still like.
No, I picked the best band.
Okay. All right.
But no, I've done that one. I've been the senior judge at the FHS Battle of Bands for over 20 years, and this year I have to go to Ottawa for 4 days next week, and it's next week. I'm going to miss it for the first time since 1999 or something.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see.
So I'm like, it's just going to be weird to miss it this year. And so therefore I've seen every great young musician that come through Fredericton. I met them when they were really young, and have seen them. So many of them I go pay good money to go see now. Right.
Okay.
Better than me.
Well, you play in a band now.
Oh yes, I do. Yes. You know it well.
Yeah, I do. So let's talk about, the book came last. We'll talk about Bruce's book, but you had a pretty major health incident.
Yeah.
Happened to you.
May 31st, 2017. I'd been taking care of my wife. Monica had been home for 7 months. A texting driver hit her coming from, she had just left work and hit her. And she woke up in an ambulance, and she ended up with a broken back and, whatever else. And so I was taking care of her for 7 months at home. And one day I was off, and I said, can you try and drive up to the mailbox today, put some pillows around this seat, and see if you can. I don't think, because I had to take her to a doctor's appointment. Right. And I said, I don't think I can drive you today. You're going to have to try yourself or cancel.
Right. You weren't feeling well.
Yeah. And I went to get up, and boom, went down the classic, the face droop, the arm. And we knew I was stroking and or having a stroke. So she called the ambulance, and we were maybe a mile from where the ambulance bay is, so you could hear them immediately. And by the time they got to the house, I was sitting up just like this talking. Right. they spent half an hour with me going, your
You're fine.
vitals are
Yeah.
incredible. Like they're incredibly average.
Right.
We can't find a thing wrong, but based on what you've told us, we think you've had a stroke and you should go get it checked out at the hospital. So I said, okay, I've been not feeling well for a couple of days. And Monica, knowing she would take me to the hospital, I said, just take the dog for a quick walk or whatever. They usually go for an hour and a half walk.
Yeah.
I said, just to, give her a walk and let her do the bathroom and stuff. And then we'll go in, I'll grab a shower. So she went out the door. I went up the stairs to the shower, and the second series of strokes hit me. And she said the dog, they got a couple 100 yards from the house, and the dog started backing out of her harness and drug her home. And the stroke started the second series in the bathroom, and I managed to get over to the bedroom across the hall, and I'm laying on the bed. And I remember thinking, my God, they're going to come back and find me dead. And all of a sudden the door opened and the dog came flying up the stairs.
So the dog knew
behind her. She knew I was in trouble.
When I read that, I was impressed. I mean,
well, I had rescued
dogs.
her.
Okay, you had rescued her
from a medical situation.
Oh,
a
my
guy
goodness.
that was terminally ill in a wheelchair. So
she,
it's almost like she knew what to do.
Right.
And I remember the door opening and Monica cursing at the dog.
Right.
And the dog's ignoring her, running for me, right? And I asked her later what that was on. She says, well, I was going for the walk anyway. I needed to burn some energy and see, because she was, 7 months of sitting waiting for her spine to fuse. She wanted to walk too. And she said, I was just going to dump the dog. And then she bolted and raced up the stairs. And so she knew something must be wrong, and come up and called the second ambulance. And that's what saved my life. Like I would be dead probably. If they'd have gone for that hour walk, I probably would have died right there. Yeah.
So you go to the hospital, and
the ride in was crazy. The second hospital was a male-female paramedic, and I've become friends with Nikki. And the whole ride in, she's just cheering me on, like, don't give up. She could see, she knew I was in major trouble.
Yeah.
She didn't know what to do with me, but she just wanted to keep me alive until we got to the hospital. And it was a life-changing experience for her. She was, coming up on her 50th birthday, and a lot of paramedics are traumatized by their job.
Right.
And she said, she's telling me all this later, that she was seriously considering getting out of it and all this. And then this happened. And she come up to me. I met her 3 months later at the hospital. She said, you're Bruce, right? And she was in her civilian clothes, and I'm in mine. And I went, you Nikki? And, the paramedic? She goes, yeah. And that was the last time I saw her. I gave her a hug and thanked her.
Nice.
And so we got to the hospital. It was just such a crazy ride. It was about 35 minutes, I think, 30 to 35 minute drive. And the whole time, she gave me, I'm puking every time I'm stroking.
Right.
But now I'm stroking on both sides.
Right.
So I'd sit up and one side would drop out, and I'd sit up and be normal and go, what's happening to me? And then the other side. So
you were having multiple strokes?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
On both sides, which is rare. And we get to the ER. They get me in there, and I knew several of the people working on me, like orderlies, nurses, and there's 8 or 10 people around me, and I can see nobody knows what's going. They cannot figure me out. Even the doctor, he was 3 hours, and still, they would ask questions like, "You're sure he's not on drugs, right?" Right, and that is their job. They have to ask that. Sure. But when you're not, and they're like, they've run out of options.
Yeah.
The lady that became my neurologist just happened to be in the hospital that day, and somebody saw her and said, "Could you come look at this guy? We have no idea what's happening."
Her name
Dr.
Baumer. Yeah.
Baumer.
Baumer.
Yeah, okay. She's from Holland, so I'm not very good with pronunciations, but she's my angel of mercy, I call her. She came over, and like I say, there's 8 or 10 people, it seemed like, around me, all trying to figure this out. And within a few seconds, she's tested my eyes, and I sat up and did another vomit. And, and she's like, is this? I said, every time I stroke on my right, I vomit. Sit up, normal, stroke left, vomit. So there was nothing left in me, and I'm just dry heaving. And she took a light finally and put them in my eyes, and then did this and that. And then, you could see a light went on, and she grabbed my wife, and I could hear it, everything, even though all this chaos is going on. And I remember saying, I think I know what this is. I've seen one in my career. It's serious. we have this fairly new procedure in St. John. We're going to send him there. It may kill him, but if we don't, it's going to be catastrophic. And basically I die right there.
Right.
So hearing that, I'm going, oh, wow, I'm in even deeper poop than I thought. Right. And I heard the word intubate him for St. John, and then all these people started coming in at me, and I'm like swinging back because I think in my crazy mind in this moment, I'm thinking, this is 4.5 hours in the ER.
Right.
Or 3.5 to 4.5 hours for it all to play out in the ER, plus the ride in and at home and all that. So for hours and hours, I've been stroking, or having these strokes. And, I've lost my train of thought.
They were going to
in the ER. Yeah, intubate me. So I'm kind of half swinging back thinking if I go unconscious, I was afraid I would never wake up. Right. So that's why I was afraid to do it. So then somebody said something about a paralysis drug and anyway, and then within seconds I couldn't do anything. So my next recollection is the next morning.
Right.
Like I stroked in the morning, like 8:30, 9 o'clock. Okay. So I'm in the ambulance in the ER for hours. So now we're into the afternoon before they've even figured me out. They send me to St. John at 6 o'clock at night before they do the procedure that saved my life, which is called a thrombectomy, where they go in through the groin. Yeah,
they took out a major clot.
Oh, well, they went in through the groin, up into the center of my brain, pulled out all the clots mechanically, then used a heart stent to repair the torn artery. Right. And that's the trick that saved me. They had only done that once before down there.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Because it's not an off-the-shelf use, right?
Right.
Like this was something they come up with in another situation trying to save a guy's life, and it works. So they said, hey, that worked before, let's try this. And it worked for me, right?
Amazing.
Yeah. And they were going to make me a case study, and I don't know, because this is live, whether I should get into it or not. I probably shouldn't.
Well,
but it kind of ticked me off that I was dropped the idea of a case study because of what they did to me was off the shelf. They thought I could have complications and sue them. So they didn't pursue me as a case study. Although UNB did pick me up and study my brain and compare it to robotic arm and all that. So it's good. We got data out of it, but I was because I could see, and the way everyone's reacting to me, that I was having this really incredible recovery. And like, study me, find out why.
You were. That's the interesting, the stories in the book. It's amazing about how you and
trying to pursue what happened. And let's learn from it.
Yeah. So that's where. So you were also part of your own recoveries of what I meant. Like you were very determined, right?
Well, stubborn. I think my mother and wife call it.
You wanted to move. I remember there was a story about your elbow.
Yeah. And that's when I woke up in St. John.
Right. Yeah. So you knew that there are little bits where you had hope. And then I think you talked about neuroplasticity. So before I forget it, I want to come back to it because you said as a musician, you didn't think you'd had the neuroplasticity to be better at guitar. Yeah. But I think now, having gone through that, you know that your brain can learn new things and learn new habits. That's why I wanted to connect that dot there.
Oh yeah, no, I've learned a lot about that connection, and because of my case, like later in the book when I go to Montreal and seek out all the doctors that in the world that worked on my kind of rare stroke, I wanted to ask them questions because and every one of them said, like, they were first stunned that in 16 months I was standing in front of them talking, walking, and playing guitar again. Like, they're like, you did this in 16 months?
Right.
It's like, this is unbelievable. We've never seen anything like it. So by the end of the weekend, I had tracked down all the people that knew about my type of stroke. They knew even some of them on my case, but they said, with you, we just don't know. So that to me was creating so much anxiety that nobody could answer my questions.
Right.
Like, everybody goes to a doctor to get an answer.
Well, but they don't know everything.
With my case, they know. No, with my case, they don't know.
Right. And they don't know.
And that created anxiety in me that I was living with every day because, for example, when they put the stent in, I asked them about it, and then I brought my laptop in and researched it, and and I found out that had a failure rate of like 1.6 to 2.1% in the first 30 days. Right? I'm going, holy shit, when you're
That's okay.
See, I warned you.
That's all right.
When you're a 1 in a billion, like even 2% still a big chance.
Yeah.
So anytime my neck hurt, I'm like, is it that stand?
Right.
But it got me to thinking. I thought, well, if they put this thing in me and only done it once before, what if it does fail? So I asked them, I said, if that fails, what do you do to save me next time?
Right.
They said, oh, we just put in a new one. I said, oh, how do you do that? Because I don't have, most people have 2. I only have 1 and 4 of the good one. So I said, you can't just, there isn't another one to rely on while you fix this.
Right.
And they just kind of looked at me and said, you only got 1, right? I said, yeah. So do you stop my heart on the table, take that one out and put another one in and then restart my.
Right.
So nobody could answer my question on that. So a couple of days later, they get back and said, okay, we've talked it over. And if it fails, here's what we do. We put a smaller one in and hopefully it opens enough to open the other one and enough blood flow. Right. But it won't be as right. So I'm going, yeah. And they said, sorry, we didn't think about it. We were just trying to save your life.
You thought
but I'm thinking about all this stuff. Right.
Wow.
Because at first I can't talk. All I can do is think and blink.
Right.
So all this stuff is going through my head. And I'm like, I need to be able to write or speak or something someday so I can get these questions out there.
Right.
And then slowly my left side came back and I could speak a little bit. And, then every day I almost was getting better after that in therapy and rehab.
Yeah, so you did go to rehab in the hospital, or they took
well, first
you back
I went to acute.
Frederick.
No, they rushed me to St. John.
Right. And then
I spent 2 days there in ICU.
Then they had a bed open up for you here.
Yeah, and I said, you've got to move me back to Fredericton because Monica she couldn't drive back and forth in her condition. I said, get me closer to Fredericton. I was starting to be able to talk a little bit anyway. And so they found me a bed there. They moved me to Fredericton and I moved into the acute 4 Northwest acute stroke care. And it's in a ward with 3 other people. Yeah. 92, 95, and 97 years old or something. Thought, and because like stroke brain is like a lot of brain fog, you're very confused. Reality probably isn't, your reality is not what's real, right? Or whatever. You're in a different altered state. And in my mind, I was convinced they had put me in the goner room. This is where you put people that are just going to die. It's not funny, right? Yes, I know. No, goner room. I laugh about it now. Yeah, I laughed about it. But for 5 days, I laid awake, afraid to sleep. Right. Right. Yes, because you didn't want to be a goner. Yeah. Yeah. I was afraid that I'd wake up and I'd be in one of those little drawers in the morgue. Right. Panicking, right? And I can't yell for help or
right. I can only imagine. Wow.
So then I was up there for I think 9 days, and like I think they registered 10 hours of sleep in the first 12 days. And the first 5 days I didn't sleep a wink. Not a wink. And like I've gone sleep deprived as a normal brain person, and it's devastating.
It's not fun.
To do it to a stroke person. And this is what a lot of the nurses that are starting to read this now are realizing. And I preach at a lot of the conferences I go to. Rehabs, hospitals need to be single room only. Sleep is probably the most important thing.
For healing.
Because that's when your brain is healing itself. And like after what you've done for the day. And everything is taxing.
Yeah, because you told some stories about you were in some noisy rooms and things were going on.
Like in the room with those 390-some-year-olds, on catheters. One guy's dementia, getting out of bed, pulling his catheter out all hours of the night, like right across from the nurse's shift. Like there was just too much noise for me. Yeah. So then after 9 days up there and progressing a bit, they said, I think you could benefit from rehab. I said, let's go. Yeah. But I went down and back into another ward situation and, no sleep again and let's go to work. And it was my worst day in the hospital. And I saw the lady the other day and I gave her a big hug and still apologize almost 8 years later. And I still feel bad about it, but it's not something they're not used to, but it shouldn't have happened. But I just was so sleep deprived.
It must have been
that I couldn't handle doing anything more than just surviving.
Right.
Like, don't ask me to do anything more.
But they let you go home on weekends, right? That kind
Well,
of
a
go to your
patient-
mom's place.
Yeah, a patient there said to me, he saw that I was really struggling, and he says, he says, there's a way you can get out of here for a few hours, day pass, he called it. And then I found out there's weekend.
Right.
So I called my mom. I got start scheming in my brain, and I called my mom, and I could barely talk. Right, and I'm like,
right.
Mom, if someone calls, just say yes.
Right.
And I hung up.
Yeah.
Sure enough, they called. I
Okay.
just pestered them. I said, if you don't let me go home, I'm signing myself up, because at the time they were still thinking about making me a case study.
Right.
I said, your research will go out that door.
Right. Right.
Thinking I had some control over the situation.
Right. Yeah. Well, you had some.
Well,
you're
not much. But so anyway, they smartly said, no, he's just too wound and he needs to go. And so I went to my mom's, and I think I talked about that in the book.
Yeah.
Thinking I was just going to go down to the end bedroom and have a big sleep, right? No, she's got me set up in her bedroom with the big queen size bed or whatever. And Mom's like 91 now, but she would have been, mid 80s then. Yeah. She's walking around the house talking to all her friends with her speakerphone on, and you'll never guess who's at my house, right? And it's so loud, but the charging station and stuff was right by my head. So every time the phone rang, it was right over here. Oh my goodness. So I think I got 4 hours of sleep the whole weekend at her place. But it was just getting out of that environment and realizing I need to be there. So I went back Monday morning, and I told Maureen, kick my butt. Yeah. And 7 weeks later, I dragged my ass out of that hospital. Yeah. Right? And
that's amazing. Home. And they call you the Miracle Man.
Well, the nurses do.
The nurses do. Yeah. And I want to, can you want to talk about the signatures in the book there? I don't know.
I've just started that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of neat.
This is I got my own personal copy mailed to me Thursday, and then found out Friday that the books are on the shelves of Indigo stores, Chapters, Kohl's, Westminster. They're starting to roll into, and lots of pre-orders. And I said, what I'm going to do is all the nurses and doctors and therapists and people that helped me that I wrote about in the book, I'm going to track down and have them sign my copy. Right. And then when I pass away, this copy is to be donated to the rehab unit for the future student or patients. Right. I call them students because I'm like a coach, right? We're students. And this will be for the patients when they come through, and they can read this, and hopefully it'll inspire them to really work hard. And everybody knows anything about stroke. Every stroke is different, and every recovery is different. There are some kind of commons like fatigue and brain fog and facial and can't speak properly and stuff, but overall recoveries are all different, and it's repetition and re-encoding. Right. And the more you do something, your brain will find a way to weave that path. Right. And neuroplasticity. Yes, neuroplasticity. So when I was up in Montreal, to go back to that, I was asking them, they asked me, they said, when you went home, what did you do? Because you've made these tremendous gains since you went home, not just when you were in the hospital. Right. And the guy who's probably the most well-known for doing these, he said, well, what did you do at home? And I said, I tried to play my guitar. And he went, bingo. He said, the two extremities with the brain in the middle. He said, that's perfect. That's amazing. Bruce. Right? He said, piano players, even your keyboard typing. Yeah. He said, stuff like that will get your finger, because the fine motor skills is the last thing to come back, right? Okay. It takes 3 sets of muscles to open and close your hand. Oh my goodness. Right? It's the hardest working. Yeah. That's interesting. It's the only one that takes 3 sets to open and close. So that's why they come back last. Right? And so music, not to fast forward, but music they tell me the musical brain is already used to rewiring every time you learn a new song. Right. So he said, you had natural advantage and tapped into it early. That's amazing. Yeah. And so now music is incorporated into a lot of recoveries, whether it's singing, playing, listening. Yes. I've talked to a couple of sound healers actually on. Yeah. But there's music. Music therapy, music therapist. That's it. Yeah. And so I've been looking into that, and it's only a 2-year program. But if you got 1,000 hours in a rehab, it's a 1-year program. I've got like 875 now.
Wow.
So, I'm sitting there thinking, do I want to go back to school at this age, and stuff. But if there was one job I'd be interested in, it'd be being a musical therapist.
But I mean, I think just your whole story and your life anyway is helping people. Like,
No, I'm not going to deny that. I know I'm at the hospital as the patient experience advisor for therapeutic services for Horizon Health.
Perfect.
Every Tuesday.
That's
and
amazing.
I meet stroke survivors and their families every week.
And you give them hope. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah. You got to tell them that they have to know there is a way out.
And they're part of their recovery, right? Like you were a big part of your recovery. I mean, the doctors and nurses did an amazing job. But
nobody believed in me but me.
That's what stood out in that book for me was you know, and even when you were up there, like the stories, you created family when you were up there. Every ward you were on, you were like, you had
it's funny you mention that because the editor, when I met her, like I've never met her in person.
Okay.
But the first thing,
the book,
she's like probably the top editor in Nova Scotia, and she just loved the book. And she said, "I love that you created a community wherever you went." And I never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
right.
But it's so
and
important.
I said, "What do you mean?"
And well,
she said,
you do, but you do it naturally, though.
But I don't know it. I guess
it's just another gift you have.
No, it's not.
I'll just write that down. Community creator. What was I going to say? So music helped you because I know you started playing the guitar and then you.
I wasn't really playing in the rehab. They would give you activities to do, like, and one of them was a woodworking class where you could build a birdhouse or something. And, I looked and I said, I used to build my own furniture. Like, I'm just not into, I said, my guitar, and I would go out and literally use my hand and try and wipe my name off the board. And I did, like the third time they came, okay, we get it. You don't want to build a birdhouse.
Oh my God.
Right. I said, look, my guitar's made of wood. That's what I want.
Right.
So my occupational therapist who deals with fine motor skills said, okay, bring it in. So Monica brought it in for me and I was excited.
Yes.
And I took it out of the box and put it on my lap and I couldn't even get my shoulder over it. I was so pissed. Right. Very upset. Put it back in the box and thought I'd never be able to play again.
Oh, no.
And about a week went by and Amanda, my occupational therapist, come by. And because I couldn't hang on to anything, even though these 2 fingers and thumb worked, but these 2 were dead.
Right.
And so she took this 2 little medicine cups, like the plastic ones that are disposable in the hospital, and put in some dried rice and a little bit of tape around the edge of it, electrical tape, and made me a little shaker that she could jam in between my fingers.
So you could,
and I heard, and that's how it started. I would sit for hours. I couldn't change it. Just
right. Just
no rhythm, just the sound. Like trying to get that sound back in my head. And for hours I would sit there. And then I got out of the hospital and our band, your brother's in it, and it's a good band and we're starting to really develop and do our own stuff. And then this happens. And I told them, like, you guys
go on without me.
They said, no, we'll wait, Bruce. So for a year, I sat in the corner and they rehearsed and I would drool and cutting my fingers into the back of my strings, and they would let me, right?
Wow.
And they weren't feeling sorry for me because they stopped in a lot and saw that I was progressing. They knew this was good for me and encouraged me to do it because I was ready to give up music at that point because I thought, I'm just happy to get out of the hospital. If I never do anything again,
amazing though that it became part of your recovery,
But the more I understood about the musical brain and studying and talking to these doctors, I'm like, no, this is exactly what I need to be doing. So we kind of came to the agreement that, let's give it a year. And if I can play, I will. And if I can't, I'll leave.
But
and
you did.
We got a gig the next June was the first full show I did. We did a couple little things within a few months, like 3 or 4 songs here and there. But this was a 2-hour set. And I hadn't stood for longer than probably a few minutes in a year and a half.
Wow.
And I said, I don't know if I can stand for 2 hours. So I've still got it. I bought a little stool for $12. and put it for the next about 5-6 shows just off to the side in case I needed to sit. And that's how little confidence I had, was I didn't know if I could do it. Right. I had a lot of confidence I was getting out of the hospital. That was my sheer determination.
Right.
But I didn't know if I could play well enough to play with them again, because they're really good musicians, and I'm just like, no, I wasn't to begin with. So now having this, it's like, no, I shouldn't be on that stage. That's how I felt.
Well, but then, but you did, and it happened, and I can't remember the page number. You wrote a song. Do you want to talk about the song Day After Day?
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking I might add it to this somehow if I can figure out.
Attach it.
I don't know what page it's on, Bruce. Sorry, I should have memorized the page. Do you remember?
No.
Oh, well, talk about the song anyway. I'll find it while you.
Well, when I got out of the hospital and went home, music. I had a little workout I did at home. I'd go down to the river. I'd take a walking stick because my right leg, the knee didn't bend for. I went home in July, and I think it was October, November before my knee bent.
Yeah.
So I would go down to the river and go up to my waist, take a walking stick and go up to my waist, and then walk upriver against the current to build my core and to, try and develop some strength and stamina. I had stretchy elastics I would use to try and keep me from cramping, and smash my fingers into the back of. I couldn't even hold a pick, so it was literally
fingers
grinding your fingers into the back, and cuticles and all. I drew blood many times, but over time it got a little better and a little better. So I thought, okay, I'll try and play. And some shows went okay, others, like a finger would stop working, or it would go dead in the middle of a set. Like I was like a freak show half the time. The boys are like, "Are you going to make it tonight?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
So I know. So here I found the songs on page 111.
111.
Day After Day.
Yeah.
The first, waiting for the sun to rise to brighten up the day. Waiting on an angel of mercy to help me find my way.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful. Actually, it's really catchy because it's in my head right now.
Yeah.
But so.
Well, that was after I got out of the hospital, and I started to play a little bit, and I always I found songwriting easier than book writing.
I would say, but you wrote a book anyway.
I know, but I used to like writing songs. They came to me quite easily. Yeah. I didn't write a lot, and I didn't record a lot, but most of the ones I recorded, like our old band Blind Dog, I think we had eight songs on the first record, and I think I wrote. Well, the CD has 10, so out of those 10, I think I wrote 7 or 8 of them. And like 6 of them got on the radio, right? Like I don't write a lot, but if I'm writing, it means a lot to me, and I stick with it until I do it. So I thought I've got to write a song to thank everybody that helped me, right? Yeah. And I come up with this riff. I had the music first, and then the first riff, I'm waiting for the sun to rise to brighten up my day. And I thought,
while you're lying,
and then I was thinking about Dr. Bauma, because she was the one that figured me out. I went, waiting on an angel of mercy to help me find my way, and that was it. I said it with that until I completed that
finished
song.
It. So did I know some of healthcare workers have been out to your shows, because I've been to the shows. And has Dr. Bauma ever been to a show?
She can't.
Not yet. No,
because she's at the top of her field.
Right.
She can't even come to the book launch. She's so bummed. A brother's flying in from somewhere, and they have to drive somewhere. But she wants me to make sure I save her a book. I'm going, of course I will.
So talk about the book launch. This is amazing. When can we go?
Well, some people are already getting it. I'm finding out because there's so much demand that they're shipping it out early. Like if you pre-ordered, it'll probably come earlier.
Right.
There's some stores like in Halifax, Moncton, St. John's have some copies. Fredericton sold out right now, so you have to wait until some more come in. I think. I don't know, probably in the next week or two, they'll be on the bookshelves again. But there are some stores that have them already.
When's the book? Though?
The official release is supposed to be the 15th of April, but it's already, people are already reading it.
You're having a
my own party. Oh, yeah. My publisher's throwing me a party. Okay.
When's the book?
Well, no, but the official book launch is the 15th. Okay. My own personal book launch is May 22nd at Dolan.
At Dolan's, okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we're
that'd
going to
be
have
fun.
a night. I'm going to do like if there's enough interest,
I'm sure there will
6
be.
to 7 question and answer. Because now
Right.
it probably, by May, everyone will, the book's coming
book
out
will
earlier
be,
than
yeah.
expected.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping there'll be more questions.
Of
And I want
course.
people to ask me what they think,
Yeah.
or
Well, this is great.
they may have a family member that has a stroke, or maybe they've had a
Right.
stroke and want to ask a question they've never asked anyone else.
Yeah.
So from 6 to 7 do that. Then our band, The Unheard, will play 7 to 8. Then I'll schmooze and do some more signings.
Right.
And then the other band, Overwhelm's going to play for a set.
Right.
So it'll be like a 6 to 9:30 kind
Really
of thing,
nice-
early
nice
evening,
night.
over
So
quick.
that's May 22nd.
Yeah.
And your song, you guys have an album out?
Well, the album come out June 29th.
Right. So called
And that
Rising
song
Wind,
is on
and that
it.
song is on
Yeah.
it. Great song.
Well, I've got
A
a
lot of
video
great
for it
songs.
that'll be the
Oh,
whole album's
The
good
whole album is good.
to me. Like,
Well,
I mean,
it's
I
good
know
to
I'm
me
biased, but a lot of people have called me or messaged me when it came out and go, man, it's
Yeah,
rare
it
to
is
get an
good.
album start to finish that.
Yeah. All your own songs. You
Well,
and
most of them are
Ron,
Vaughn's.
but you
and
and
Bob,
Bob.
but Day After Day is
you
mine.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I wrote that myself at home in
Yes.
recovery, and then I
Oh,
took
that's
it to the band and go, what do you think of this? And they're going, that's a great tune.
Yeah. Really catchy.
It's a 3-minute rocker.
Yeah.
Right?
That was awesome.
So we'll see how that one goes. So I'd like to have a video come out. I've got one I need to do some tweaking to,
Right.
that I'll maybe release around that book launch in May or something.
Okay.
I'm working on a solo acoustic project too. I've got a couple songs already in the can. I'm working on that.
Nice.
And now the book stuff's taken off. Like, I'm getting calls and requests
That's
every
great.
day when I check my
So
computer,
I
something
got you
new.
at the right time. Eh?
Oh,
Before
you
got
did.
so busy.
Like, April is really filling
Yeah.
up. Like,
Well,
I told the
that's
boys,
great.
I don't have time to rehearse.
Are you traveling on any book tour or anything? Or-
Yeah, I just found out tonight. Chapters, a friend of mine at Chapters has intervened and gotten in contact with my publisher,
Yeah.
and they're setting me up a little mini tour of Chapter stores around
nice.
New Brunswick, at least. I don't know if
Right,
it's the Maritime,
maybe in
but the
Nova
first one I
Scotia,
just got
yeah.
a message for. He came here that said Moncton or Dieppe.
Nice.
Yeah, Moncton, I think, on April 12th.
Fun.
So
Okay.
noon to 4 at Moncton Chapters. I'll
There
be
you
there.
go. April 12th.
You can come meet me.
Awesome.
I'll sign your book and answer any questions you got.
Awesome. Well, Bruce Hughes, what a pleasure to have you.
Oh, it's always good to see you.
Really good
Lisa.
conversation of what's cooking in your soul. So I have a couple of questions I ask everybody on the show. What makes you feel most alive?
Playing live.
Playing live.
It's the only thing I love in
Cool.
music.
That is
right?
kind of a cool thing.
The
isn't it?
writing, the rehearsing,
Yeah.
the recording, that's all like work.
Yeah.
Playing live is the fun.
Awesome.
It's the only thing that's fun.
And the other question I have is, and I usually let you know about these ahead of time, but I didn't do that with you tonight, so I apologize. It's because of the show is called The Soul's Kitchen. So I used to be still a cook, I guess, but
Yes,
what's your ingredient for life? Like, it doesn't have to be a food ingredient, but what would you say
Wow,
like
yeah,
an
that's a good
ingredient
question.
for your life, or like a theme? Think about that one.
Compassion.
Compassion. That's so
Yeah,
nice.
seriously.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you don't have an ounce of compassion,
Mm.
I'm probably not going to be around you.
Well,
And I'm a pretty good judge of character.
yeah.
And the people that are compassionate are my kind of people, because I know they care about others, not just
Right.
themselves.
Well, you're super compassionate too. I thought you were going to say community, but
Well,
natural community builder.
I was trying to think, but that
No,
doesn't
that's
drive
good.
me.
No, I know, but you're
We're all
good.
driven for a reason,
That's
right?
true.
And I know
Yeah.
the reason I'm driven. It's just that's another whole show.
Okay, well, really, you never know.
Yeah,
Could do
you
another
never
whole
know.
Show. Well, Bruce, thank you so much.
Thank
Bruce
you, Lisa.
Hughes, music man, miracle man, author, community man. What else can we say? And educator.
Okay.
Thank you, Bruce.
Checks in the mail.
All right. Yeah, the check's in the mail. All right. High five.
Give me a
Okay.
cake.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. All right. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.